Welcome back, all my fight fans. Today, I have my predictions for UFC 304, July 27th in Manchester, England, and I am extremely excited for this fight card. I think it's super stacked. The UK is well represented from top to bottom on this card. There's 15 fights on this card, which is 5 more than what we are getting at the Sphere in September, so I feel incredibly spoiled as a fight fan. And yeah, if you guys like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, share it with your friends. It helps boost this channel and the algorithm. And with that all out of the way, let's get into the predictions. So, as per usual, I'm going to go through the early prelims and the prelims a little bit quicker than I'll go through the main card, not only because there's 15 fights on this card and there's a lot to talk about, but because there's a couple fighters on these early prelims and prelims that I'm a little bit less familiar with. So if you are from the UK, you know these fighters from the regional scene, or you're just a big fan of them and you think they're going to win next weekend, let me know down in the comments why you think that is, and I'm excited to keep my eye on a couple of these people come next weekend. So let's kick it off with the first fight of the night in the early prelims. It's a light heavyweight bout between, I apologize for butchering names again, but this is Lithuania and Poland. So it's Modestas Bukakis versus Marcin Prachinio. Prachinio, that doesn't sound Polish, but I'm going to take the Polish guy. Like I said, I'm not the most familiar with both of these guys. They're a little bit more like middle of the road light heavyweights. I know a couple of their losses, but I don't know a ton of their wins. I'm taking the Polish guy simply because, and this is super like basic logic, but he's beaten Khalil Roundtree and the other guy's lost to Khalil Roundtree. So that's literally my only reasoning here. I'm excited to watch both of these guys. It should be a fun fight to kick off the night, but a little bit less familiar with them. Same goes for the next fight, the women's strawweight bout between Shauna Bannon versus Ravina Oliveira. Shauna, I saw that she had, she had an undefeated streak coming into the UFC, and then her first fight, which was her last fight in the UFC, she lost. So I believe she's 5-1. And then the Ravina Oliveira chick, she's a slight favorite in this fight, and she just has a couple more fights experience. Similar record. I'll go with the Oliveira chick just to be safe, but I would like to see the Shauna chick, sorry. I've seen just some highlights of hers, and she seems like she's a pretty fun fighter, and it'd be nice to get, a win in the UFC. If you get 2 losses in a row and you get that third loss, usually you're out of here. So hopefully she can get a win come next weekend in front of a hometown crowd. I know she's from Ireland, but still. Next up, in the welterweight bout, we have another Irish fighter. We have Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosby. Now, I'm going to take Sam Patterson because, A, he's a minus 355 favorite, I believe, and B, I've seen a little bit more of him so far. I haven't watched a ton of Kiefer Crosby. You guys can let me know in the comments if you're a little bit more familiar with him. A couple of these Irish fighters on the card I'm a little bit less familiar with. I apologize. But Sam Patterson, from what I've seen from him, he has really crisp and clean striking, and his record's a little bit more clean. So I'm going to take Sam Patterson in this one, also with him being a heavy favorite and by the odds. I'll side with him, probably second or third round finish. And then we have a middleweight bout between Christian Leroy Duncan and Gregory Rodriguez. Now this fight I don't see going to decision at all. If there's one early prelim fight for you to highlight and come and watch, I know a lot of people don't really watch the early prelims or the prelims. They're just kind of there for the main card. But if you're going to watch an early prelim fight, I would say it's this one. I'm not the most familiar, again, with Christian Duncan, but I am very, very familiar with Gregory Rodriguez. I always make sure to watch his fights because if you look at his record, it's very obvious that when he wins in devastating fashion. He has an immense amount of power. He can knock just about anybody out in that division. He's truly scary. And yeah, for a guy who looks like he's 42 or 45, this guy's only 32. He's kind of like just in his prime now. And for middleweight, he's kind of, just getting into his prime. Middleweight tends to be a slightly older prime. So I'm excited to see what RoboCop can do in that fight. And then we have a welterweight bout between Oban Elliott, representing Wales, which is cool to see, versus Preston Parsons. Now, again, a little bit less familiar with both of these guys. I've seen a couple fights from each. I'm going to side with Oban Elliott, even though he's a slight underdog. I just like his style slightly more. But this fight, I'm glad that it's headlining the early prelims because it's hard to say because there's so many fights on this card. But this fight is one of those fights that I see possibly being a fight of the night. So I would also maybe highlight this one as well. And let's move on to the regular prelims. So kicking off the prelims, we have, again, a couple fighters who I'm a little bit less familiar with. We have Mick Parkin versus Lukas Brzeski. I don't know, another Polish name. But the Mick Parkin guy, he's undefeated. You guys can let me know in the comments if you guys know a little bit more about him. I've only seen his one fight, which was his last fight where he beat Usman's brother, Muhammad Usman. So I'm going to take him, being that he's undefeated and he's got a flawless record so far. It's kind of hard to not pick him. He also is a minus 218 favorite, so I'm going to go with Mick on that one, but I'm excited to see a little bit more from him. Like I said, I'm a little bit more unfamiliar. Then we have a bantamweight bout between Kolan Lugren. I hope I'm saying that right because it's an Irish name and that doesn't sound right. But him versus Raymond Tavares, or Raymond, I'm not too sure. Tavares, I'm probably going to side with. However, the Irish guy is a minus 218 favorite. So there's probably something there that I'm not seeing. He's 9-1, which is a pretty good record, but I haven't seen any of his fights yet. So if you guys are a little bit more familiar with him, again, let me know in the comments why you think he's going to win. But I'm going to side with Tavares on this one just because I've seen him fight a couple more times. Then we have a women's strawweight bout between Molly McCann, fan favorite Molly McCann, versus Bruna Brasil. Interesting. Having your last name being the country you're from. It's spelled differently, but it's still funny. Anyways, Molly McCann is a minus 290 favorite, and I probably have her winning. I'm going to take her by spinning back elbow, round 2 or 3, only because she has 2 knockouts by spinning elbow already. It's probably not going to happen. I would not bet on that finish, but I'm excited to watch Molly McCann fight. I think she's coming off of a loss. Or no, she came off of 2 losses, got a win. And yeah, she's got to get on another winning streak if she wants to do something at strawweight. But then we have a featherweight bout headlining the prelims. Nathaniel Wood versus Daniel Pineda. Now, I think this is one of the biggest favorites on the entire card. Nathaniel Wood is a minus 485 favorite as it currently stands, and I am probably going to side with him. I've seen Nathaniel Wood fight quite a few times at this point. He's beaten some fighters that I really like Andre Fili and Charles Jourdain. So I'm probably going to take Nathaniel Wood in this one, maybe by stoppage in the first or second round. Those odds just seem so far apart. I feel like he's going to get a stoppage in this one, and I hope he does. I hope he does for UK fans out there too. So that's the fight that highlights the prelims, and then we get into the main card. So, kicking off the main card, we have a featherweight bout between Arnold Allen and Giga Chikadze. So, Arnold Allen is ranked number 6 right now at featherweight, and Giga is ranked number 10. Now, this fight, the odds are in Arnold Allen's favor. He's a minus 265 favorite right now, but I really do think these odds are pretty much even here. The reason for that is because you have a traditional kickboxer in Giga versus more of a traditional boxer, and I think just the way that these styles match up, it's going to be a very, very fun fight, possibly fight of the night here. So to make the case for Giga, he is 35, so he's starting to get to that age, especially at featherweight, where you're going to start to dip in your performance a little bit. Plus, he has, what was he in kickboxing? I think 38-10. So like almost 50 kickboxing fights. That's a lot of experience to bring into the cage, but it's also a lot of miles to bring into the cage. So he also has a couple losses in his career. The 2 that were earlier in his career, I don't exactly know who they were. I haven't actually watched those fights, but when Giga came over to the UFC, he went on a pretty good winning streak, beating guys like Edson Barbosa, and then he ended up losing to Calvin Kattar. That was 2 fights ago, so that's his most recent loss, and that was a fight of the night. I assume that this fight will be very similar, especially because Arnold Allen and Calvin Kattar have very similar styles. I think Arnold Allen is a better boxer than Calvin Kattar. He's a little bit sharper. So factoring all of that in, I think Giga's going to have a real tough time with Arnold Allen. And then Arnold Allen, you know, he has one loss too, which was earlier in his career. I don't exactly know who it was to, and I haven't seen that fight, but his recent 2 losses, like I said, Max Holloway, razor close fight, and Iloev, which, again, very, very close fight if I remember correctly. And I'm an Iloev fan, so I was probably cheering for Iloev the whole time. And yeah, he made that another close fight. So I think Arnold Allen actually has some of the best boxing, not just at 145, but in the entire UFC. So I'm super, super excited for this one. I thought, you know, with the style matchup here, maybe this could have been made into a fight night main event. Now, I understand because Arnold Allen's from England, you want to put him on the UK card. But since we just had, last week we had a female headliner, and this weekend we have a female headliner. They might be doing that because they know that Mike Perry and Jake Paul's on, and most people are going to be watching that instead. I know I will be. But I just feel with, having two women, and I've got nothing against women fighters. Some of my favorite fighters of all time are women's fighters. I like Shevchenko more than 99% of male fighters. But to have two female main events back to back, I know a couple fans were a little bit sour about that, and I feel like a fight like this is a perfect fight to have a fight night main event. This should be 5 rounds. It's too bad it isn't, but I'm going to take Arnold Allen by decision in this one. Only by decision because, Giga's tough, and he's got a lot of experience, and I don't see him getting knocked out. It could happen, though, so we'll see. Next up, we have a flyweight bout between Mohamed Mokaev versus Manel Kape. So number 6 versus number 8. I'm super excited for this fight. Mohamed Mokaev is one of my favorite fighters at 125. He's not my number 1 favorite fighter anymore. Tyra is. I love that Tyra kid. I'm super excited. I believe he just got the shot against Pantoja, so he's going to be fighting for the belt next at 125. A lot of people thought that this bout should have been the decider for who was going to fight for the belt next, but that's the way it goes. I think the reason why they did that is because Mokaev beat Perez, and it was dominant. It wasn't, as dominant as the way Tyra did it. Tyra finished Perez, and I think that that's the reason why he got that shot. Tyra, for me, he could potentially be like the next Demetrius Johnson. I mean, he's undefeated. He's 25. He's got all the skills. He's kickboxing genius on the ground. He's a wizard. That Tyra kid's somebody to look out for. And that Ray kid, that other Ray kid, too. I forget his last name, but there's a couple Japanese kids. I believe the Ray kid's like 22. There's a couple Japanese kids at 125 that are really quite something. And I'm excited to watch how their careers play out. But to talk about this fight that's happening next weekend, Mokaev, like I said, another one of my favorite 125ers, and it's because he's so well-rounded. He's got great ground game. He's good on the feet. He's got more tools to win this fight, I think, than Manel Kape. Manel Kape, though, he's got that power. He can knock out basically anybody at 125, so he is dangerous. I really hope Mokaev doesn't get knocked out in this fight. He's only a slight favorite, a minus 122. So this is a fight that could go either way. I'm not the biggest Manel Kape fan, so obviously I'm going to take Mokaev, but like I said, it could go either way. And this is a big fight for the division. Whoever gets this, I think, is going to face the winner of the Tyra-Pantoja fight, and I can't wait to break that fight down, man. Like, I really like Pantoja, too. Don't get me wrong. I really like Pantoja, but that Tyra kid, what he did to Perez was just outstanding to me. I've never seen a performance quite like that. The way he was on the back and hitting him, the way he knocked his leg out from under him, there was so much in that fight that I was like, wow, I've never seen something like that. So flyweight's a lot of fun right now. It's weird to say that, but it is. The next up, we have a lightweight bout between number 15 rank. On the UFC website, his first name is actually not Bobby anymore. It's King Green versus Paddy Pimblett. Bobby Green is a minus 130 favorite. Paddy Pimblett isn't ranked yet, but I do think Paddy Pimblett's going to take that number 15 away from Bobby Green in this fight. If this fight does somehow get to the ground, if it stays on the feet for the whole 3 rounds, it's going to be pretty hard for Paddy Pimblett to find his shots. Bobby Green's just a better boxer. There's not too many guys at lightweight that Bobby Green's not going to outbox. Now, there's a couple, but Bobby Green's one of the best boxers in that division. Yeah, it's going to be tough for Paddy, man. But if he gets it to the ground, if Paddy gets it to the ground, Paddy is very quick on the ground, and he chases submissions with a determination that's kind of rare. You don't see that as much anymore. And I think if it does get to the ground, even if there's just a couple minutes left in the round, Paddy will have enough time to submit Bobby Green, and that's probably how I see it going. But like I said, this fight's pretty 50-50. It can go either way. Next up, we have Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades, and this is a rematch. For those of you who didn't watch the first fight, it ended very quickly, and it was a bit of a weird fight. So Tom Aspinall early in the first round throws a leg kick. Curtis Blades kind of checks it, and Tom Aspinall's knee basically just explodes, and it's ruled a loss for Tom Aspinall. I don't know why. It seems like when situations like that happen, it's very arbitrary how they call it. They just kind of make their minds up on the spot, whether it's going to be a no contest or a loss. Unfortunately, it's a loss for Tom. I don't think it's an actual loss. I don't think any of you guys consider that a real loss. So it is what it is. We'll put the Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall one fight to the side and just ignore it for now. But I need to talk about the elephant in the room because this is a heavyweight interim title belt defense. If Tom wins, if Curtis Blades wins, he wins the interim title belt off of Tom Aspinall. It's so weird to say that. This situation's odd. There's a lot of opinions going around on it. So let me know down in the comments how you guys feel about this situation. I'm going to defend both parties here because I don't think it's John Jones's fault, and I don't think it's Tom Aspinall's fault. I don't think either one of them should be stripped. I think there's a lot of people out there right now saying that either one of them should be stripped of their title. I don't think that's accurate at all. I think that this situation just is what it is, and it has to play itself out. It sucks, but to defend John for a second, he takes 3 years off. It sucks because he's my favorite fighter, and I don't get to watch him for 3 years. But he comes back to heavyweight. Always wanted to see him at heavyweight. He slices through Cyril Gane like butter, like he's not even there. There's no competition. Everybody wants to see Stipe versus John, the greatest heavyweight of all time versus the greatest fighter of all time. We all wanted to see it. Nobody was saying something else should have happened. The fight gets booked. A few weeks out, John Jones tears his pectoral muscle, which is a pretty substantial injury. It takes a while to recover from that, and there's nothing really he could do about that. Now, if John Jones went out there and hit another pregnant lady, I would say, okay, let's strip John Jones. But this is something he had no control over. And I think regardless of who you are, if you're a champion, you didn't just win that championship fight. You won all the fights leading up to it. Your whole career has been getting to this spot. And if you get an injury, something you can't control, and the title gets stripped from you, that's unfair. Now, if it takes you longer than a year to recover, if it's taking 2-3 years for you to recover from an injury, I can understand taking the belt away. But in this instance, I don't think it's fair to strip John at all. I think you make the Stipe fight because the Stipe fight... Now, this is just me. You guys can disagree if you want. I still think that Stipe at 41 years old is a harder fight for John Jones than Tom Aspinall is now at 30. Now, my reasoning for that is I understand Stipe just went out on a brutal loss to Francis Ngannou, and that was hard to watch the way he folded. But what he did against DC was one of the smartest MMA performances I've ever seen in my entire life watching MMA. The way he started to adjust his game plan to go down to the body and wear DC out and then go back up to the head was just brilliant. It was excellent strategy adjustment in the fight. And I think veteran tactics like that is what's going to beat John Jones. It's that kind of stuff that's going to give John Jones problems. It's not going to be... I know this sounds weird because of the Reyes fight that's in a lot of people's recent memory, but I don't think that the young, explosive buck is going to do it anymore against John. I think John has switched his mentality after that Reyes fight. Reyes and pre-Reyes, John Jones always said that he would look at his opponent and what they are best at, and he would try to beat them at what they are best at. And I think in the Reyes fight, he just ran into somebody who was younger than him, hungrier than him, more prepared, and just put out a higher volume and a higher output. And that was one of the best single performances I've ever seen in my life by Reyes, and John Jones looked almost invisible in that fight. Now, I still think John Jones won the last 3 rounds. The third round is very controversial, but I think the last 2 he definitely won. But the first 2 rounds, the reason why Reyes had success is because John was staying on the feet with him, and Reyes was just pummeling him with volume, with an energy that John just didn't have anymore. So John, since then, has adjusted his strategy to go, okay, what are you worst at? And I'm going to beat you at that. And that's what he did with Gane, right? He took him down and choked him out like that. It's like Gane wasn't even there. It's like Gane didn't even show up. He might as well not have shown up because it was that easy for John. So John, going forward, I think, the things that are going to give him problems are the well-rounded veteran crafty fighters like Stipe. And Stipe, I think he's got that kind of Randy Couture in him, that George Foreman, where he can have like a later prime. At least that's the sense I get from Stipe. I could be wrong, but I also want to say that I think Tom in 3, 4, 5 years from now, that'll be prime Tom. That'll be the Tom that we will look at and go, that's the next heavyweight GOAT. Because I think Tom, even though he's 30 years old, he's kind of like in his prime now. Heavyweight prime is usually a bit older. And I think as Tom gets more 5-round fights under him, he gets a few bigger names on his record, we'll see Tom as a better fighter in the future. I don't think this is prime Tom Aspinall yet. So that's the reason why I say that. But I still want to see the Stipe fight first, then the Tom Aspinall fight if John wants to stick around. And I know there's still the Pereira fight floating around. I think that's ridiculous. I'll break that down in another video, but I think the whole Pereira going up to heavyweight and knocking out John Jones is silly to me, but that's for another video. Let's break down Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades because that's the fight that we're here to talk about. It's the fight that's happening next week. So I got the elephant out of the room. Hopefully, you guys can let me know down in the comments if you guys have any other opinions on this whole title situation at heavyweight. I'm glad to discuss it with you guys down below. But let's talk about this fight. So, like I said, the odds should be a little bit closer. Curtis Blades, the asterisk that I have over his record is that he's 18-4. His 18 wins, at least the majority of them, are quite impressive. He can win a lot of different ways. He can beat you on the feet. He can knock you out on the feet. He can take you down. He can submit you. He can ground and pound you. Not only that, he's probably the best freestyle wrestler I've ever seen at heavyweight. Now, DC's also fantastic. He also could, take a high crotch and flip guys on their heads. But for the most part at heavyweight, you see a lot of body locks, a lot of trips. You don't see a lot of shooting for double legs because that takes a lot of energy at heavyweight. But Curtis Blades can do it, and he's done it relentlessly throughout his career. And it's exciting for me because I'm a big freestyle wrestling fan, and I like to see it implemented, especially at heavyweight. So Curtis Blades also has quite a few wins on his record that I don't see on Tom's record. Not that Tom needs to beat every single fighter that Blades beats, but just Blades has more substantial wins, in my opinion. And that gets to kind of the asterisks on Tom's record, which I'll talk about in a second. But the asterisks on Blades' record is, despite all these great wins, he's beaten Rosenstruck, he's beaten Dos Santos, he's beaten Overeem, he's beaten these guys that, I think would probably give Tom a tough time. He's beaten Almeida, another guy who I think would maybe give Tom a tough time. But the asterisk is that those 4 losses that he has are all by knockout, and they're from 3 guys, twice from Francis Ngannou, once from Derek Lewis, and once from Pavlovich. Now, what do all 3 of those guys have in common? They all have 100 power. They all have nuclear options to switch off anybody's light switch. So I don't want to say Curtis Blades has a weak chin. I think that's an over-exaggeration when you're talking about him being knocked out by the 3 heaviest punchers I've seen at heavyweight in a long time. The thing is if Aspinall knocked out Pavlovich, does Aspinall also have that 100 power to which Blades is going to fall to that as well? He's going to fall to Tom because Tom's just going to find that light switch. Now, I think Tom's going to find the off switch because of his speed and his technical precision. That's why I think he's going to find it in the first round. Not so much because of the power, but it could be the power too. He's got a lot of first-round knockouts. Tom Aspinall might be that guy. But we have to see. That's what we'll see next weekend. So for Curtis, that seems to be his kryptonite. It's just guys with ridiculous power that can just find his chin. But everybody else, if you have 96, 97 power, Curtis is going to deal with you, and he can beat you in a lot of different ways. You look through Curtis Blades' highlights, and he's so well-rounded. I think he's really, really getting overlooked in this fight. I mean, he's got wins over Olenek, Mark Hunt. The list goes on, man. He's beaten a lot of good guys, and his losses, they get a little bit over-exaggerated because those guys can knock out anybody. But again, I understand the people saying, Blades is a little bit chinny and Tom's going to knock him out in the first round. Going over to Tom's side, the asterisk on Tom's record is maybe me just, nitpicking and trying to find something to comment on. I don't think anybody should get too hung up on this, but I also might be a little bit salty because I tend to cheer for the Russians. But if you look at Tom's last 5 wins, they have all been over old Russian fighters. Pavlovich, I guess, isn't that old, but not that Tom fight really showed me that Pavlovich is a bad fighter. I think that fight's 50-50. I think it's 50-50 if you run it back. Going into that fight, what I saw from it, there wasn't too much to analyze because the fight ended so early, but you guys can let me know if you disagree. But I saw basically 2 guys throwing bombs and 1 guy landed first. That's basically what I saw there. Now, in the Volkov fight, I saw that Pavlovich is a little bit more one-sided, one-dimensional. We'll see. We'll see how Pavlovich's career plays out, but Pavlovich might not be the amazing fighter that we thought he was going into the Tom fight. Not to take away from Tom's win. That was still impressive to knock somebody out in a minute, but Tiburia, not the greatest fighter at heavyweight. Volkov is getting up there in age a bit too. And Spivak's not that great. Arlovsky's 45 at the time of recording this video. I think he was 42 or something at the time that he fought Tom. And he gave him a little bit of trouble in the first round. So for me, those are the only big names on Tom's record. His other wins, of course, they're first round knockouts, which is impressive. But they're against people I don't really know. And I just think personally, I need to see a few more wins on Tom's record for me to really get on that hype train. I need to see him beat, a Jairzinho Rosenstruck or a Derek Lewis, somebody with like crazy power and good kickboxing. I need to see him beat like an Almeida or a Curtis Blades. This weekend's going to be huge for me just for seeing how good Tom is. I want to see him beat a ground guy like that, somebody who's deadly on the ground. So for me, there's a little bit of an asterisk on how Tom's record looks so far. I tend to think he's a slightly bit untested, but at the same time, when you have 13 first-round finishes, it doesn't really matter who you're fighting, and all of these guys are in the UFC for a reason, so don't put too much stock into that. I just wanted to make some sort of case for Tom not being this undefeatable fighter that some UK fans seem to think he is. Like I said, I think this fight's very close. I think going into this, I think it's pretty close in odds. I'm going to take Tom Aspinall in this fight. I'm kind of cheering for Curtis Blades just because I've been a fan of him for so long, and every time he seems to get close to that title, he just gets knocked out by a heavy puncher, and it really sucks. I really want to see him have success at heavyweight. But at the same time, if I have to use my brain, if I was a betting man, if I was putting money on this fight, I would put money on Tom Aspinall first round knockout, because out of all the ways the fight can end, the largest piece of pie, the biggest percentage is Tom Aspinall by first round knockout. And we're going to see just how good Tom is. Now, I think Tom has amazing striking. I think his boxing is really crisp, and I think his speed is really nice for heavyweight too. We'll see how much power he has. It's hard to say that he doesn't have power with 13 first round finishes, but we'll see with Curtis Blades just how much power Tom has in those hands. If this fight goes past 1 or 2 rounds, I do see it favoring Curtis Blades. So if we're getting into round 3, 4, 5, it could switch to Curtis Blades' favor because he's got a great gas tank. He's got pretty good cardio, and he could just find takedowns whenever in a fight. And if he takes you down and gets on top of you, there's maybe one fighter on the face of the earth that I would less like have on top of me than Curtis Blades, and that's probably John Jones. I think that's the only guy with scarier ground and pound than Curtis Blades. And if you're saying, well, what about Habib? I love Habib too, but Curtis Blades is way bigger. I'd rather have Habib on top of me punching me than Curtis Blades. So Curtis Blades is scary when he gets on top, so we'll see if that plays into the fight at all. He's got to get the takedown first, and Tom Aspinall does have really good takedown defense. So there's a whole bunch of different ways this fight could play out. It's super exciting for me. It's more of a traditional boxer versus a wrestler, and those are my two martial arts, boxing and wrestling. So I'm excited for this one. I wish it was the main event. Sadly, because it's an interim title, it's not. And the reason why I say I wish it was the main event is because we'll get into the main event now. Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad, this is also a rematch, which I'll talk about in a second. Both of these fighters have the ability to make this fight incredibly boring. This could be a snooze fest just like that. If Leon hurts Belal in the first round and then the next 4 rounds, he's just kind of like almost point style, just keeping him at bay with his punches, it's going to be boring. It's going to be like that Colby Covington fight, but worse. And I thought the Colby Covington fight was incredibly entertaining, but I also like technical kickboxing. Not everybody likes that. If Belal takes Leon down, it could be incredibly boring. Belal has the wrestling to just lay on top of Leon for 5 rounds and make it a classic Belal Muhammad decision win. I know we all like to shit on Belal Muhammad for his decision wins. You can't knock him too bad because he is a pretty well-rounded fighter. He has the ability to stand on the feet for 5 rounds with Leon Edwards and not get knocked out. He does have that ability. Now, if he stands for 5 rounds with Leon Edwards, do I see him winning? No, not even close. I think if he stands for 5 rounds, he's going to get pieced up by Leon Edwards. I think that's like obvious. But he also has the wrestling to take down just about anybody in this division. Like, Belal's a very well-rounded fighter. It's just he's kind of boring in the way that he fights and that he can't really find finishes. And it is what it is. I would rather see Shavkat on this fight card too. I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same way. But we can't knock Belal too much. He's gotten here. You know, he hasn't been beaten in like 10 fights. He's gotten here. He definitely deserves the shot. Leon, on the other hand, he has less ways of making it boring. You know, he's got amazing takedown defense, some of the best takedown defense at 170. For that reason, I don't really see this fight going to the ground. Even though Belal's wrestling has been getting better and better each fight that he's had, I don't know if he quite has enough to take Leon down. I think if you're going to take Leon down, you need to have like Shavkat type wrestling, some really tricky trips or something to get in the clinch. If Colby Covington can't take Leon Edwards down and hold him down, I know that's not really Colby's style, but if Colby Covington can't do it, I don't think Bilal can. Leon Edwards, if he keeps it standing, man, it's going to be a point fight the whole time. He'll just keep him at bay, I think, and he'll piece up Leon the whole night. I hope he finds a knockout to make this fun, because Leon can make fights boring on the feet for some people. Me, I find it entertaining. I thought the Colby Covington-Leon Edwards fight was one of the most flawless, masterful performances I've ever seen in my life. I said immediately after the fight, I'm like, that Leon Edwards reminded me of prime John Jones. That was a perfect fight. And I loved watching it, but I know a lot of people found that fight to be a little bit boring. Colby wasn't really getting his hands going and throwing that volume that he usually does, and he seemed a little bit sluggish. Maybe there was some ring rust there, and Leon just didn't really chase the finish. So that tends to be Leon, the story with Leon sometimes. Sometimes, he's fighting such a clean fight. He's staying so perfect that he doesn't take any risks. He doesn't look for that finish, and that can make fights boring sometimes. So I do think both of these fighters have the ability to make this fight incredibly entertaining if they want to, but I do think the way that they fight, their styles, and the way that this matches up, it could be a very boring fight, and I really hope that's not the case. I really, really hope Leon Edwards goes out there and just flatlines Bilal in the first round. That would be perfect for me. I would love that, but like I said, I think this fight could be, and unfortunately could be boring. Like I said, hopefully I'm wrong. But it's just unfortunate that Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades couldn't have been the main event, because I thought that's going to probably be the most exciting fight of the night. But yeah, that's kind of my breakdown for it. Yeah, the Leon Edwards Bilal Muhammad fight, I unfortunately don't have much more to say, because I'm just really excited to see how it plays out. The first fight didn't really give us too much. I mean, Leon was kind of winning it up until the eye poke. I don't really know how you would call it up until the eye poke, but there's just a lot of weird X's and O's for this one. Can Bilal take him down? I don't think so. Leon Edwards' takedown defense is a little bit too good. Can Bilal, do anything on the feet? Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. But let me know down in the comments, how do you guys think that the main event and the co-main event are going to play out? Both of them are rematches. Both of them, the first fight ended very weirdly, an eye poke and a knee explosion. So, yeah, let me know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. It helps boost this channel and the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it means the world to me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.